What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
That smile of hers really is scary. I probably would have been petrified pre-reincarnation, but by this point, well, that's how it is. Which is fine and good for demons, but what about the other monsters? It's not like they'd know what to do with the souls they've collected. I learned about all this only a few moments ago, besides, and I'm still wondering why it's this big competition now. I'm sure it's like the spoils of war for them or something, but I really don't need those kind of spoils. 700,000, though, huh? If we really did score all those, that meant I could awaken 7 more people. The fact that thoughts like this were naturally coming into my mind now was frightening, but no, I gotta stay firm with myself. Can't have my mind turn monster on me. With that resolve in mind, I faced the big screen.
They're on the move.
Row upon row of Imperial soldiers were now moving in formation, calmly storming the gate as if they weren't scared at all.
Just as planned.
I muttered.
If at least half of them can go in for us, it'd make things a lot easier later.
Benimaru gave this a calm smile.
I have no intention of letting even a single soldier escape. I'll go in, too, if need be.
Geld nodded.
My second corps has approximately 17,000 troops. Compare us by numbers, and it looks dire, but in ability, we don't miss a beat. We can take advantage of the terrain to entrap the enemy.
Great to hear. And if I burn the inner halls with my flames, anyone left standing ought to be strong enough to put up a worthy challenge.
I'm sure Carrera would be glad to help with that. She's been wanting to let off some steam for a while now, so I'm sure she'll be eager to exercise her skills.
No, there's no doubting the power of a primal. It's a tough act to follow.
Hang on. This conversation was going a lot differently than I expected. Benimaru and Geld were going on like this was already one. Real bold of them, considering how I was still a little worried about this. Carrera had become a part of their strategy as a matter of course, too. There wasn't even a shred of hesitation about tapping a primal's power.
That's not fair, Benimaru. If we're aiming to wipe out our foes, that's where I come in.
Even Shion was stepping up. Yet again, she'd forgotten that she was supposed to be bodyguarding me. But then, there was no place safer for me than the control center. Team Reborn, the force Shion led, prided themselves in their relentless tenacity. It'd be a shame to leave them idle this whole time, so if this turned into a ground melee, I'd like to get them out there. So, yeah, I could see myself giving deployment orders to Shion if she wanted them, but…
Shion, calm down. We need to gain an accurate gauge of what the enemy's doing first. Depending on how things go, though, I may need to tap your abilities, yeah.
She'd have to be content with that for now.
If Sir Rimuru needs a bodyguard, I alone can more than fit the bill.
Well, if Diablo's volunteering for that, then if things really get hairy, we could call Testarossa and Ultima back. They can teleport in no time flat, after all.
If you say so, Sir Rimuru, then fine. In that case, you'll be up, Shion.
Right. You can count on me, Benimaru.
Shion beamed as she thanked him. I have trouble understanding why she loves fighting so much, but, hey, if she's happy, then great.
Good. In that case, Rimuru, it is time to prepare.
I'll join ya, Master. Time for us to show him just how terrifying the labyrinth can be.
Quite so. And with me as your final defense, you have absolutely nothing to worry about.
If you'll excuse us, Sir Rimuru.
Brimming with enthusiasm, Veldora and Ramirez left the control center, Beretta following behind. The room suddenly felt a lot quieter. For Veldora, this would be his first real day of work as the master of the labyrinth. I wasn't entirely sure if he'd have a role to play here, but either way, his zeal was certainly encouraging.
Right, let's see what the enemy has in store for us.
I tried to sound as Demon Lord Lee as possible as I watched the rows of people marching through the gate. Everyone else nodded. And with that, our battle against the 700,000-strong main army of the Empire began. Calgurio, commander of the armored division, smiled at the sight of things going to plan. He looked over his army with supreme confidence. One after another, his rows of elites were streaming through the massive gate. It connected to the labyrinth, no doubt, and that labyrinth was bound to bring Calgurio immense wealth. By now, the monsters must have been in a panic over the unexpected 6-figure strong force at their doorstep. But it was all thanks to long, careful planning, and soldiers strong enough to execute on it. After a great deal of discussion with the main brass over their route of invasion, they decided to send the Magitank division in first, standing out as much as they could. In addition to this, they also deployed 100 airships from the Flying Combat Corps, their ace in the hole, so they could fight off the evil dragon Veldora if he happened to show up. The Flying Combat Corps was also responsible for transporting the Magical Beast Division westward, with Gladium commanding them, but their journey would be chiefly over the sea, guaranteeing a safe trip. It was therefore decided that the airships wouldn't need any armaments, so Calgurio's only remaining responsibility was providing logistical support. This he planned to do by operating 300 airships at full capacity, transporting the necessary military supplies at the same time as Gladium's force. They had concentrated their forces in a single area mainly for the projected battle against Veldora. The other 100 airships deployed to the Forest of Jura were each outfitted with a full set of the most elite magicians the Empire boasted. With this final piece of the puzzle, their support system was fully complete, and Calgurio believed it all enough to let them take over the entirety of the West, and if Gladium's force attacked the capital of Anglacia, the war would be over in no time at all. It was a simultaneous dual-pronged operation, and Calgurio's armored division would play a major role. If they succeeded, they'd be putting up dazzling military results. That would grant Calgurio more power in the Empire no matter what, and the thought made it impossible for him to wipe the smile from his face. The basic outline of this operation worked like this: the Magitank division would make a conspicuous entrance. The enemy would latch onto them, and once they did, Calgurio himself would lead the main force in a grand display of power, attacking the stronghold of the Demon Lord Rimuru. According to intel, the Demon Lord could apparently transport his entire capital into the labyrinth for safekeeping. It sounded ridiculous on the face of it, but it was true. All that was left on the surface was a large gate opening up into the labyrinth. So they decided that the first thing was to surround the gate, blocking any escape routes. A handy magic canceller or two working on the surrounding space would make it impossible to magically teleport out of there. It seemed possible to completely seal off the area. The problem here was the strength of the armed nation of Dwargon. One underestimated the heroic King Gazel at their own peril, and the dwarves are known for their stoutness. They remained undefeated for a millennium for good reason, and anyone who downplayed their might was bound to be burned. However, there's no way we can lose. Breaking out old-fashioned antiques against 2,000 Magitanks? It won't even be a fight. Dwargon's purported neutrality didn't even register in the Empire's mind. They had let the armed nation go unchallenged so far because they'd be a thorn on their side, but if they could win now, there was no need to pull back. With a combination of magic and science, they had built an all-powerful force based on a completely new system of combat. That, in a nutshell, was the armored division Calgurio led. Gazel was a champion among dwarves, yes, but what could he do by himself? It may have been quality, not quantity, that could potentially turn the tide of battle, but knowing what he did about how destructive his tank guns were, Calgurio saw fighting with swords and magic as nothing but an anachronism. The dwarves, only capable of producing outdated, obsolete armaments, could never imagine the true value of this next-generation army. And by the time they realized it, it'd be too late. All that awaited the dwarves was a lopsided rout. These ideas were all fundamentally wrong at the core, but Calgurio had no way of knowing that at the time. He was so happy with himself, and so assured of his victory, that he never imagined for even a moment that he'd be defeated. And just moments earlier, the long-awaited report came in. An envoy from the enemy had paid a visit, but negotiations had broken down, and hostilities were already underway. Receiving this news, Calgurio and his team stuck to the plan and marched forward, and now they had captured the lands believed to comprise the Demon Lord Rimuru's stronghold. Calgurio, perfectly at ease, contemplated his troops. Rather a waste to give Gaster a free shot at Gazel's head, but ah well. You can't give 'em the stick all the time, the troops won't follow you otherwise. They need a carrot now and then. Lieutenant General Gaster and Major General Faraga were among the most capable of Calgurio's subordinates. He had no doubts that they'd fail to live up to expectations. Both Gaster and Faraga were dead at this point in time, but it'd be asking too much of Calgurio to know that.
So have we heard from Gaster yet?
Calgurio asked one of his men.
Not yet, sir. Not since he reportedly entered battle.
Ah, I'd think the dust will have settled by this point. Bit lazy of him to delay his report. He can't be having trouble over there.
I'm afraid I have nothing else to report, sir.
That's fine. So what about Faraga?
Gaster's first on the field battle in ages must have been getting to his head. With total victory in sight, Calgurio reasoned, he must have been too focused on the fight at hand. But what about Faraga, then? He must have had a balcony view, dreamily floating up in the clouds, and he'd surely be able to give an accurate report. But the liaison officer assigned to Faraga was acting strangely, sweating profusely as he desperately tried to make contact.
What is he doing?
This put the brakes on Calgurio's good mood. He was irked, and that emotion no doubt came out in his tone of voice.
Major General Faraga,
reported the harried liaison,
has reportedly encountered a monster believed to be Veldora. He said he would send a follow-up once he could confirm it.
But nothing had come since then. Just that first report, and then total silence. According to the communications wizard on duty, the forest of Jura was so thick with magicules that voice transmissions could easily be jammed. That made sense to Calgurio for a number of reasons. This entire forest was created by his archenemy Veldora, and it was home to a demon lord to boot. It stood to reason, in his mind. Deciding there was no use worrying about it, Calgurio shuffled the concern out of his mind. If they were engaged in combat, they wouldn't have time to send superfluous reports. And like the wizard said, there were more than enough magicules in the atmosphere to block incoming and outgoing magical calls. Plus, if Veldora himself was out on the field, no way any calls would make it out anyway. So Calgurio mentally switched gears.
We'll have to wait for the good news, then. If they truly did encounter Veldora, it's perfectly natural to expect silence from Gaster and Faraga, but no point shuffling our feet over them. We've got a labyrinth to capture.
Given the vast size of the force he provided Gaster, Calgurio didn't give a moment's thought to the idea that he might be defeated. In his mind, he had completely discounted the possibility long ago. In fact, this lack of contact could even be a good thing for him. If Faraga was engaged with Veldora in the skies above the forest, that meant only the Demon Lord was inside this labyrinth. He had heard stories about their Big Four and the threat they presented, but the restructured armor core would make quick work of them. So without further hesitation, Calgurio's eyes turned toward the labyrinth. Before him lay a clearing, a vast one, big enough to house a large city. Near the middle of it loomed a huge gate serving as the labyrinth entrance. Magic-based probing revealed no traps or other threats. It was a simple gate, just waiting for Calgurio's force to challenge it. The words carved into it, "Through these gates, the weak are unworthy to pass," told Calgurio that his strategy was right all along. Hiding everything from us because you're too afraid we'll plunder it all, eh? Pretty cheeky thing for a bunch of monsters to do. Looting in the name of supply procurement was something any nation was afraid of. Securing enough provisions to keep an army fed was always a challenge, especially to one as large as the empires. Taking the enemy's supplies was always an effective tactic too. Well, tough luck. Calgurio laughed at the monster's shallow intelligence.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of AnimeKouhai supporters. Capital, Benjamin Villar, Jason Martin, Michelle W. Hernandez, Owen Thompson, Sam Ward, Ethan Madison, Letty Ann Pelayo, Louis Strotter, Charles Bailey. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.